Welcome to NARAL's The Morning After. Each Thursday, our podcast brings you the latest on reproductive health care, progressive politics, and the fight to keep abortion safe and legal. NARAL's The Morning After is a production of NARAL Pro-Choice Ohio. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Pro-Choice OH. Enjoy the show.
Gabe.
I'm Jamie.
And I'm Stephanie.
Hey, Stephanie.
Hi, Gabe.
Okay, so the first thing we need to tell folks that are listening and watching is that it's Thursday morning. It's June 23rd, and it's a little after 10:30. So right now we're recording and simultaneously watching SCOTUS blog because there's a chance that this morning we'll see a decision for whole women's health, which we'll talk about later in the show. But right now we want to welcome Stephanie to her first appearance on the podcast. Stephanie Craddock Sherwood is the executive director, right? That's your title.
Yeah.
Of Women Have Options Ohio. So for those who don't know, who is who?
Who is who?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very much like who's on first.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm the executive director of Women Have Options. Women Have Options is what WHO stands for. The Women Have Options is the abortion fund, the independent abortion fund in Ohio. We raise money and to make sure that that choice doesn't only happen for those who can afford it. So we grant money to clinics who then during the counseling process, if women need the funds, then they pull from our fund.
Okay. So you guys run the bowling thing.
Yes, we have the bowl-a-thon.
And so there's bowl-a-thons all across the country,
Mm-hmm.
and you run one of them.
Yes. So there's the National Network of Abortion Funds is our national network. And so there are hundreds of abortion funds all over the country. And we're one of them. And the NANAF does kind of coordinates all of us to do an annual big fundraiser, big fun fundraiser called the Network of Abortion Funds, National Network of Abortion Funds Bowl-a-thon. But this year we raised $27,000.
Nice.
From bowling or from bad bowling. It's because everybody's like, I can't bowl. You don't have to be a good bowler.
No, this isn't a tournament.
No.
Let's get together and throw some balls down a lane.
Yeah. And just have fun in general. Dress up. There's lots of funny costumes during the years.
Yeah. I hear somebody wore a Statue of Liberty costume one year.
Yep.
Wondered who that was.
And damn, he looked good in that.
And you can visit our Facebook page to see Gabe in a Statue of Liberty costume.
Yeah.
With a bowling ball.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are a grassroots organization. I am the first staff member, and I was hired like 3 months ago. So the organization has been around since 1992, and had been all volunteer run up until 3 months ago. And because we need to grow, we need to meet the need. The need is growing. So we're gonna rock it.
Mm-hmm. So I love the founding story of Women Have Options. Can you share that with our listeners? Because it's one of my favorite things.
Oh, I love it too. So our founder, Emily, she knew a woman that needed an abortion and who couldn't afford it. And she was kind of horrified by the fact that she couldn't afford it and kind of was trying to figure out how to help and gave her money for the abortion and, and then told her so that the woman wouldn't feel embarrassed or anything like that, that it came from an organization that did that sort of thing. And
it's not a private donation from Emily Rutherford.
Exactly.
It's an organization that did these things.
Yeah. And to make good on her promise, she started Women Have Options, which was actually one of the founding members of the National Network of Abortion Funds.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Long history.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's terrific. But so this isn't your first job working in, the field of reproductive rights. For those who don't know, you and I work together at Planned Parenthood. So
yep. Like 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Down the hall from one another.
So not your first rodeo.
No.
So, you know, I do think it was really terrific that they could hire somebody to, you know, to head the organization full time, and the fact that they picked you, I think, was a terrific choice.
I feel quite lucky.
All right. So if people want to contribute to the abortion fund and help pay for women's abortions, where do they go in Ohio?
They go to to womenhaveoptions.org. I was like, you put me on the spot, and I was like, oh, wait, right, womenhaveoptions.org. And we're looking for volunteers. If you want to get, you're like always looking for bowlers. You can sign up for our newsletter to get information on bowling. It's such a fun event too, and it happens in the spring.
Right, but people don't have to wait for the bowl-a-thon. They can give it anytime.
They can absolutely give it anytime, early and often.
Womenhaveoptions.org.
Yes.
Check the show note for the link.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, welcome to the show. You were with us on Monday. Maybe Jamie wants to talk about what happened Monday.
You know, no big deal. The city of Columbus just passed an ordinance to, you know, protect abortion clinics. No biggie.
Nice.
Actually, it was a huge deal.
Yeah.
And so, we've talked about it before. Councilmember Elizabeth Brown had introduced an ordinance to protect patients and employees of abortion clinics as they enter and exit the building. It is not a true buffer because the court ruled on that 2 years ago and, you know, struck down Massachusetts buffer zone. But what it does is it stops people from being harassed, intimidated, followed, and those kinds of things outside of the clinic. It also increases the penalty for doing those things within 15 feet of the clinic property. So there was an amendment. We got rid of harass and follow, and they replaced it with commit disorderly conduct, which is basically the same language. It really wasn't any real change.
Right.
Made things a little bit clearer. And so, they changed that and then passed it. So unanimously in city council.
That's awesome. So now it's a first degree misdemeanor. That's actually, you know, that's not a slap on the wrist.
Yeah. And if they do it multiple times, the penalty actually increases for the second and beyond. So it really does take a next step. You know, it's not perfect and amazing because, you know, things have to be balanced. You know, you have to balance our constitutional rights to free speech and protest. But so we really want to make sure that people are protected outside of the clinics the best we can. So 30 days. The the ordinance will go into effect 30 days from the day it's signed by the mayor. Okay.
And so on Monday, we before the city council met, there was a press conference. Councilmember Elizabeth Brown spoke, kind of informing the media, you know, if they hadn't been to the previous meeting that we talked about on last week's show, exactly, you know, what's been going on at abortion clinics, why this is necessary. We heard from a representative who was speaking for, you know, the police department to say, you know, this will provide additional enforcement. And he was very clear that they are not out there to pick sides.
Yeah.
And, you know, outside an abortion clinic, they're not there, you know, supporting one side or the other. They're there to enforce the law. And this clarifies what the law is and adds another tool to that toolbox to make sure that they can keep the peace where right now there has been harassment and threats. So that was really cool. And then also a young woman named Kayla stepped up and she shared her story. So she gets her That's What She Said of the week. And she talked about how she had gone to, you know, a clinic because, you know, she had a pregnancy and it was threatening
her health.
Yeah, threatening her health. And what did she say? It was something about an irregular heartbeat.
I can't remember exactly what it was, but yeah, I mean, she was terminating. She was not going in necessarily for a voluntary termination. She was terminating because something was going wrong with her pregnancy. And, you know, that's the biggest thing. You know, so many of the people walking in that building, you know, they don't know the story. The protesters don't know the story of the person walking in the building. They don't know whether they're there for birth control or an abortion, or I've got a funny story from somebody else who was actually going to a Planned Parenthood for hormone replacement for menopausal symptoms, and was getting screamed at by the protesters. So, they have no idea the story of the person walking in to the building. And of course they treated this woman like they treat every other woman walking into Founders,
Right.
screaming and yelling and shoving pamphlets at them. The thing that I think caused the biggest reaction for me was like, they were so close. I could feel their breath on my face.
Right.
Like
And
that was
down her
how,
neck.
that was how close that they were to her, in this instance. So it really did bring home why this is so important, especially at clinics like Founders. Planned Parenthood usually becomes the big headline in all these things because they're the big known name. But, the Columbus Planned Parenthood has a fence and a parking lot around the building.
Right.
So the patients don't generally have to encounter the protesters as much as they do at Founders, which is a more urban building with a small alley-based parking lot that not very many cars fit in. So the patients are usually having to park on the street or in another lot and having to walk through the protesters to get to the clinic.
Right.
So there's...
Oh,
No,
sorry. And all in all, this is, just like Elizabeth Brown said, during this whole process, it's a safe and legal medical procedure that everyone should be able to access without harassment.
Right.
And, no matter the story, and it's none of their business. Right.
No.
As far as we need to protect not only the patients, but also all the staff. And this is such a good step in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, nobody has ever harassed me going into a doctor's office, and that's the way it should be. It'd be great if that was the case for everybody.
Yes.
No one protests outside of dentist's office or
Right.
family practices or anything like that. It's only reproductive health care centers.
Maybe we should. Your wisdom tooth deserves to live.
Anti-filling.
So you can watch the video of that press conference with Kayla sharing her story on our blog, NARALPro-ChoiceOhio.com. And we'll have a link to it in the show notes. So that happened at 4:00, and at 5:00, we all went inside City Hall, which was nice because it was roasting hot. It was like 91 degrees outside.
Yeah.
Sat through City Council. And again, we have the video of the City Council meeting on our blog. So you can check that out too. There was 3 witnesses for each side. And the walk of shame goes to Created Equals, Seth Dreyer. So this was twice now that the organization testified. Yes. He seemed to have a very it's not us sort of disposition.
Well, that's what, I think we talked about it last week. The demeanor of the protesters at the hearing were completely different. Even at the press conference, we actually expected, them to come with their signs and those kinds of things. So the press conference, they did none of that. I mean, I think this is the first press conference we've done outside, unmolested by the protesters.
Right.
There wasn't even the box truck.
Yeah, I mean,
I was surprised.
They were nowhere. There were a couple in the crowd. I saw a couple of Columbus Right to Life t-shirts, but they were just kind of standing back in the shade away, didn't try to do no signs and nothing.
Yeah, we were facing. First off, we were facing the sun during the press conference, which was roasting. We were also facing the river, so they would have had to not had the the fetus box truck. They would have needed a box boat.
Yes,
which I think would have been interesting.
Don't give them any ideas.
Oh yeah.
So the demeanor of these people at this hearing were completely, we don't do anything like that.
Right.
That's not us. But Created Equal, who has the Killer Among Us postcards that they harass the neighbors of abortion providers with, and is constantly going up and trying to engage people and using their words against them and everything else and all aspects of harassment. Seth Dreyer gets up there and is like, well, we don't harass anyone. We don't do that behavior.
Right.
Which is hilarious. So if you don't do that behavior, then why are you opposing this ordinance?
Right.
Is really the real question. They kept talking about how they, this was going to stop their free speech rights and this was going to impact their ability to speak. And no, if you're opposing this, it's not because you're protecting your right to free speech. It's because you're protecting your right to harass someone.
Right.
because that's what this is outlawing.
Yeah.
So Seth gets the walk of shame for trying to claim that Created Equal would never harass anyone. And maybe we should totally put in the show notes the link to the Cincinnati walkout with Haskell's wife. So you'll see Created Equal and another one of their buddies, Brian Kemper, who lives in the Dayton area, the city of Troy, followed Val Haskell, Dr. Haskell's wife, out of the Cincinnati court building. I was escorting them out, and you can see the not harassment that they do on a daily basis.
Right.
In that video,
It's not something that anybody wants to have their experience firsthand.
No.
So yeah, I mean, we heard from Seth. We heard from some clergy that were absolutely supportive of the ordinance. Reverend Al Debelak specifically came back. He's testified several times on various pieces of legislation. So it's good to hear from him. And then the committee voted, and it passed. It was unanimous.
It was a little weird.
Yeah.
It was just like,
yeah,
it just
haven't had that feeling before.
Everybody just looked at each other, and like we were all looking at each other.
Yeah.
We had quite a crowd there,
Right.
And they voted, and we just kind of all just started looking at each other, and just was like, I have my hands up, kind of like in pause, like, wait, did that just happen?
Right.
Yeah.
And we
that
were like,
really happened.
I don't know what to do.
Right.
This is great. We want to cheer, but we're not allowed.
Well, and I was up in the balcony, and so were a lot of the people who were opposed to this measure. And I was waiting for them to like unfurl a banner or start screaming or whatever. So I had my laptop on my lap typing out what was happening on our Twitter feed. And I had my cell phone with the video function open, ready in case they started up, because I was going to shoot video of them, making fools of themselves in the city council balcony.
They didn't want to give you podcast fodder, I guess.
Apparently,
Yeah.
Which is fine.
They were totally on their best behaviors.
Right. But so, Stephanie, like I said before, I mean, you and I used to work together. We started at the same time in 2008 with Planned Parenthood.
Yes.
And Jamie, I know you were with NARAL then, and, had come on board with them a year or two prior, maybe
2004.
I mean, this is really, so that's, a nice decade of experience there. This is really our first legislative victory.
Well,
I mean,
at least anywhere locally. I mean, I think that, universal or healthcare was, Obamacare was a big
clearly
victory,
a win.
but yeah.
All the other victories have been stopping things.
Well, exactly.
And most of them completely behind closed doors, so that nobody ever knows. I was talking to somebody, and I was like, so much of what I do is kind of like Homeland Security. Like, it didn't happen. You didn't know about it.
Right.
We've stopped multiple abortion bans.
Yep.
I mean, one of the funniest like late night in the state house moments was in 2006. December of 2006 was the last day of session. It was lame duck session right before Ted Strickland became governor. So we were changing from Republican to Democratic governor, and they were throwing all kinds of crap in things at the last minute. And that was when we had the complete and total abortion ban without even a life exemption in it. That was still pending. And we're sitting around, and they went into a 1 hour recess at like 10 o'clock at night. And we're like, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. And we're like, what the heck is going on here? We find out later from our Republican friends, because back then we actually still had a few. Before we completely re-gerrymandered the state even worse. And we found out that the fact was that Brinkman was trying to get his full abortion ban into this last minute bill. And it was the 30,000 emails that we had been sending continuously through Lame Duck, where they were like, I don't think we should do that.
Right.
So, we've had,
back when they listened to voters.
Yeah, because they had to, because their districts were a tiny bit competitive.
Right.
But yeah, so we've had those kinds, but never like an actual good thing happening.
And this was on the kind of offensive too.
Totally.
And rather than, being defensive and also having to like, justify abortion care and all that kind of stuff, we were talking about the health and safety of patients. And we were like, it was an affirming process for us, rather than, which was just, I could get used to it.
Yeah,
certainly.
Right.
Yeah. So that was awesome.
Yes, it was. So, we were talking before we started recording how 2016, this year, just feels totally different than every other year. I mean, there's just been so many things going on. in politics, in pop culture. And so, we're starting to see just things that we've never seen before. A win in the city council, was really terrific. Absolutely huge movements for LGBT rights. The city of Lakewood, just to switch topics here, the city of Lakewood this week passed new protection for LGBT citizens within their city. It gives them new legal protections, which, is pretty awesome. Lakewood is the home of one of our dear friends, Representative Nikki Antonio, who is the only openly gay member of the state legislature. And so I know that while this was a city ordinance, she was very vocal in supporting the city of Lakewood in making this happen.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out. I feel like they're maybe the 22nd. I was trying to look it up here real quick, but I didn't see it. I think they're, somewhere in the 20s of, cities actually doing something like that. Columbus has something, Cleveland has something. And it really just shows our state legislature, like, hey, dudes, like, what the hell's wrong with you? The fact that you haven't done this at the state level yet. All these cities have done it. So it was a really good night to see, as we were celebrating in Columbus. It happened the same night. We were celebrating in Columbus to see this celebration in Lakewood as well. It was pretty fabulous.
Yeah. The Plain Dealer reported, it said the ordinance aims to ensure that everyone has equal access to employment, housing, public accommodations, and education. And Nikki Antonio had a quote in the paper. She said, Lakewood, by passing this ordinance, will serve as a beacon and an example to other communities.
Yep.
So bravo.
Mm-hmm. Did anything else happen in Northeast Ohio this week?
Something else happened in Northeast Ohio.
I haven't heard of it.
Something little tiny thing.
You and the sarcasm today. Yes, some giant thing.
I heard there was a parade yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, so Cleveland won a national championship in sports. in anything.
Yeah.
But in sports specifically. And I wish we had our executive director, Kelly Copeland, here to talk about it. Because, she...
So excited.
Yeah.
We're kind of happy it happened, but being in Columbus, I think maybe a tiny bit removed from, like, the exact craziness that's going on up there. But, yes, Kelly is all in all the time.
Yeah, she is. Kelly's a huge fan, and even Annie Kroll, our field organizer up there, went to the parade and was joined by 1.3 million people. An absolute massive turnout, which definitely, clearly, more than other national championships for other sports and other teams. This was an expression of civic pride unlike anything I've ever seen before for the city of Cleveland and the Northeast Ohio area. Listening to people open up, not just about, I've loved the Cavs since whenever, and I follow Cleveland sports. They started talking about their relationship with their parents.
Yeah. Yep.
I
wish my dad had seen this. I was all over like social media. It just really it hit them at super core level. And I'm not a sports ball fan. But at the same time, I couldn't help. Actually, I'm kind of sports, but I couldn't help but feel really, really happy, genuinely happy for all of my friends who were feeling such a deep sense of pride and felt that they were. It was like the whole city of Cleveland and everybody who's connected to Cleveland was also on that court.
Right.
At that time, it was wild. And I got goosebumps and again, I'm far removed.
You're the least sports watching person I know.
Yes. Yeah. And I was happy, I was like, yeah, because everybody was so happy, so genuinely, it was weird and great. And it was,
Yeah.
It was also really cool because, male professional sports tends to be a bastion for male bravado and sexism and to see what happened, because I watched actually most of the game, and I'm not most of the time the sports are on at my house because my partner likes to watch them constantly.
Right.
But I was actually the one who was we need to watch this game. And towards the end, it's like 3 points ahead. Though I'm sure there's a way for them to lose. And then they scored. They scored
with
that.
Cleveland, there's always a way for them to lose.
Exactly. They scored that 4th point with like a minute left, and I was like, this could really happen, like. And then they did win, and the look on LeBron's face, look on Kyrie's face, the fact that coach had his head in a towel and was bawling. I mean, you could see the passion of all of them, and you knew, like, LeBron always said, I did this, I wanted to come home to bring a championship to Cleveland. And you could tell the way he reacted to it that he really meant those words. Those weren't just words spoken as a mea culpa for leaving Cleveland and everybody hating him. It was like he really genuinely, after he left, realized how much he wanted to come home and help his area out. And so it was just a really cool thing to see.
Right.
And as a message to the RNC next month, that 1.3 million people who live or care about Cleveland came downtown and managed to not start a riot or burn the city down.
Yes. So
when all the Republicans come next week and burn the city down, it isn't Cleveland's fault.
Right.
Cleveland managed to do this.
Right.
So, hear this, Republicans, like, stay calm. Don't burn our city down.
Yeah.
Leave us alone.
Yeah. I mean, an absolutely amazing expression of civic pride. And beyond just winning a national championship, they beat the Golden State Warriors, who their regular season schedule was better than any other NBA team through the history of the NBA. They won 73 games, which is more games than any other team has won. I mean, so they beat a really terrific team. And then they lost 3 games in the beginning of the playoff finals. So they're the first team in NBA history to come back from being down 3-1 to win it in Game 7. Just an amazing game. So in terms just purely of it being a sports thing, it was incredible to watch. But, giving them something to be proud of in an area that's had such devastating economic depression, that has so much value.
Yeah.
So way to go, Cleveland. LeBron stood up there at the end of their parade yesterday, and just gave away all the credit. A completely class act, just, not only acknowledging his teammates, but also saying, hey, this is for the city. I could not have done this without the city. So we definitely want to, say way to go, Cavs. So that parade with 1.3 million people in downtown Cleveland happened yesterday. At the same time in Congress, 2016 is a year unlike any other. That's the theme. Members of the House of Representatives took over, members of the Democratic caucus of the U.S. House of Representatives took over the floor and staged a sit-in. Holy shit.
Yeah. Well, and you really should watch. So, C-SPAN was, of course, covering it because it was the legislative session. So it started with Congressman Lewis talking about how gun violence was so bad and that they should do something about it. And then Majority Whip came up to the other podium for his 2 minutes, and like right towards the end of his 2 minutes, and they were actually panned out. They weren't totally just focused on him. So you could see the entire dais at that point. He says, and that is why we won't leave until we get a vote. And whoever was in the speaker's chair, I don't even know who that person was, because I didn't pay attention. Like, you should, the look on his face, he did this like double take of, what? What did you just say? Like, oh shit, I'm now presiding over chaos. Like, what's going on here?
Right.
Yeah. He just like this turn of his head, like, what? And yeah, so they tried to immediately shut it down. And of course they shut the cameras off, which is what they do in the State House every time anything exciting happens.
As well as the microphones.
Yes,
right?
all the microphones, the cameras, everything.
Yeah, it was funny seeing members of Congress standing at podiums talking without the microphones working, because they kept wanting to adjust it to be heard. And we're like, that's not an actual working microphone.
Yeah, every single one of them came up to the microphone and like pulled it up. And then we're reminded that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, in classic members of Congress, even members of Congress I consider to be younger members of Congress, don't understand how the internets work. And so
a couple figured it out.
Yeah. No, I was actually talking more about Paul Ryan, because they because a member, and this name's now escaping me, from South Dakota started periscoping it. And everybody was watching his Periscope link. And then, of course, it kept crashing and kept crashing and kept crashing. So at some point, C-SPAN, because they were getting lambasted for not broadcasting it because they can't broadcast anything without permission of
they don't control the camera.
Yes, they just broadcast it. Started broadcasting the Periscope feed from it. And so you can actually now watch it on there and it doesn't crash constantly, which is fabulous. But I guess at one point, Speaker Ryan was talking about like turning off the internet router for Congress,
and the AC, and all that kind of stuff.
It's the phone has its own internet. It's like, it'd be better to stream it over Wi-Fi, but like my phone has that too. You can turn the internets off in the building, and I'm still gonna be able to broadcast it, dude. Welcome to the 21st century.
Representative Scott Peters of South Dakota was one of the periscopes. Senator Cory Booker went down there. He was Snapchatting.
This was incredible.
Tammy Duckworth snuck a cell phone onto the floor inside her prosthetic leg. Because she's the famous Iraq war veteran. And there's an amazing picture that made me tear up yesterday. She's sitting on the floor of the House of Representatives without her leg prosthesis on, holding up a sign. And we haven't even said yet why they were doing this.
Yeah.
Oops. So this is to, just like the Senate filibuster from last week, this is to demand a vote for measures on gun control.
Yes.
This follows the horrible massacre in Orlando and all of the other shootings that we've been seeing. This is clearly, an extension. It's not I don't know how to compare it to the Black Lives Matter movement. These are separate things, but equal expressions that we have to change what we're doing in this country.
Yeah.
And watching Twitter, moments ago in the city of Baltimore, a judge acquits one of the officers who was responsible for the murder of Freddie Gray. So, we are looking at some very serious situations all across the country. And we have an absolute need for change. The measures before Congress deal more with curbing the sale of assault rifles. If you're on the no-fly list, you should not be able to buy a gun. We have to have background checks for people who buy guns.
Which 90% of the American public want that. Responsible gun owners want that. People who it's a place where we can all come together. But for some reason, not actually for some reason, but we just can't seem to get that passed.
Well, the interesting thing about the no-fly list one is that actually more Republicans and Democrats support that one. So like all Americans, it's like 89%, and Republicans, it's actually 92%. And I think that actually comes from, there's a lot of like civil libertarian Democrats who don't really like the no-fly list so much. But it's one of those places where actually Republicans like it better than just the general public, and Republicans are still saying we're not going to vote. And it really comes down to, there's a bunch of, Republican members who are beholden to the NRA that are up for election with Trump as their party leader, who are like, holy shit, no, I can't vote on that because I'm either going to lose the money I get from the NRA or I'm going to get beat.
Right.
And so they want to hide in the shadows and not have to take a stand on this. And I'm so glad that they're finally saying, no, we're not going to let that happen. In the Senate last week, we saw it happen, and Rob Portman voted no on these measures.
Right.
So remember that when you vote this fall.
How many million? Or he definitely got over 1 million.
1.4 million from the NRA.
Yep.
Yeah, he's one of the highest I saw.
Yeah.
So, he voted with his money instead of the people of Ohio.
Right.
So.
Right. So in the Senate, to force that vote, Sherrod Brown participated in the filibuster, which forced the vote. Sherrod Brown voted to support gun control measures. In the House, Tim Ryan, Marcy Kaptur, Joyce Beatty were some of the members from Ohio who were all down there, and Marcia Fudge who I saw on MSNBC last night, her only sibling was killed by gun violence. So her speech, definitely carried a lot of weight. So we absolutely do applaud all of the members of the Ohio congressional delegation for their efforts to continue this fight. We said on our Twitter feed, the right to bodily autonomy includes freedom from gun violence. You should only decide what goes in your body, and that includes bullets. So, this is something, it's not a reproductive rights issue directly, but we absolutely support the effort to, to do this. And like I said, they're kind of separate, parallel efforts. The Black Lives Movement to raise awareness to violence at the hands of police. So that Freddie Gray decision is kind of devastating.
All this is about safe communities, being able to raise your families in a safe area.
Right.
It's all reproductive justice. It intersects in so many different ways.
Absolutely. Okay, so we only have a little bit of time left. We need to talk about Monday. So as we were sitting here talking, we saw that the Supreme Court did not release the Whole Woman's Health decision. So the only day left is going to be on Monday, June 27th, 10 a.m. We will find out how they're going to rule in this landmark case from the state of Texas on the abortion restrictions there. We'll figure out if and how it impacts other states. And then also, because Monday is because 2016 is a year like any other, Hillary Clinton is going to be in the city of Cincinnati at 10:30. So right when we're going to be watching the Supreme Court, we're also going to be watching Hillary in Cincinnati. She's got a very special guest with her, Senator Elizabeth Warren, who I like to refer to as the next vice president of the United States. Fingers crossed.
Wink, wink, nudge,
what do you
nudge.
think?
It'll be interesting. I mean, usually they're not quite as public about something like that, but I
think they're softening the ground.
It's
I think they're laying the work, laying the base to make this decision.
Yeah, but it's also Hillary's third visit to Ohio in 3 weeks.
Right.
So yeah, she's definitely put her foot down on claiming the state of Ohio. They were saying that Trump hasn't been here since the primary yet, and he can stay out. I'm personally fine with that. But yeah, so it'll be interesting.
I think that if anyone can kind of bridge the divide and help bring the Democratic Party together, after, because of Bernie, like in the Bernie, fans, I think it's Elizabeth Warren. And I really hope I have my fingers crossed as well, and toes. And, my hopes are up, obviously. And also 2 women. I would be so excited. Yeah. Oh my God.
I mean, it would set the Democratic base on fire like nothing else.
Oh yeah.
Tim Kaine and Julian Castro are also on this rumored 3-person shortlist for VP. They're both, solid Democrats. But I mean, okay. But I mean, Elizabeth Warren, is just like a flood of oxygen into this race, exciting people like nothing else. So we don't know yet.
and as far as her Senate, or as far as her seat, though, unlike because I know Brown was on a short list as well, but we would lose that seat because Kasich would have put a Republican in that seat. But is her seat? Yeah,
her seat is safe.
Her seat is safe. So
a Democratic governor.
That's great. And so I would miss her voice, but it would. She would have an even bigger microphone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, just
rather than Uncle Joe and.
Well, I've got this picture of her putting on the Biden aviators.
Oh.
I mean, that
would be a viral video instantly.
Yeah. Yes. I mean,
oh please.
In that role,
this idea.
Yeah. No, that's the point, is it makes people giddy to think about.
Yeah.
So
And that's the energy we need.
Mhm.
Monday, Cincinnati, 10:30. Come on. That and SCOTUS. So Monday's going to be a hell of a day.
Do we think they might announce? Is that the thing like that we
That's
think?
the rumor that's going around.
Okay. All right.
I mean, it's just it's a month shy of
Mhm.
the DNC.
Mhm.
That would give them time to kind of tour this country together.
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's baby steps to make an announcement,
Mhm.
but maybe it's a test run where they step out there and they see, they run some polling numbers,
Yeah.
they run some focus groups. I'm sure they're doing all of that. But that would be amazing.
Mhm.
And so then the last thing, we don't have Randy here to sing Let's Get It On. But you can catch us at ComFest in Columbus this weekend out at Goodale Park, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you're in the city of Cincinnati Pride on Saturday, Randy will be down there. And then the last thing, Columbus had their Pride, which was obviously 1 week after the massacre in Orlando. That was amazing.
Yeah. We went from the second largest in the Midwest to the first largest in the Midwest. So suck it, Chicago.
3-hour
3-hour parade.
parade.
I love everyone
Gigantic.
in my community, but dude, that was long and it was hot and it was sunny but no, it was amazing.
It was beautiful,
600,000.
though.
It was actually I was actually standing watching the beginning of it coming forward, and I really teared up. I really didn't think I would, but like you just remember that like even though I came out in a supportive environment, you knew what pride meant and how pride was different than the rest of the world back then.
Right.
And to feel that feeling again, that week, it really did bring up a lot of emotions. It was amazing to see the politicians, the companies, the, school groups. I mean, I think Big Walnut had, or Buckeye Valley, I think it was, had like their Gay Straight Alliance in the parade, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
Just shows kind of how far we've come, that everybody wants to be in the parade.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be seen as a supporter. And it's just like, oh, that's incredible. And that's good for the heart.
Yes.
Yes. It was amazing. Okay. So catch us at ComFest, catch us at Pride in Cincinnati, and we'll see everybody next week.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.